Hey everyone, welcome back. Episode 3. I'm with Amy White over there in sunny Sunshine Coast. My goodness, what an amazing part of the world to be. I'm really blessed. There's going to be a whole lot of me listening because Amy's got so much to share. And she was a little concerned coming into this saying, just ask me questions, but I know I don't need to because once you get her passionate, showing through in what she's about to share, specifically around the birth of her 2 beautiful children I've had the privilege to meet. I felt it really valuable to share your story, Amy, or for you to share it, should I say, because I think you've had 2 very different experiences, and I really feel that it will connect with so many mothers-to-be or mothers that have been and maybe looking to, have their second, third, that will really resonate with your story because of the contrast between them. So, Amy, welcome. Thank you so much for giving your time. I know you've literally just got little Noah off to sleep. Is that right?
Yeah, detached and got into my very professional office, my toddler's bed.
Amazing. So before we begin, Amy, I'd love maybe you just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are so people get to know and connect with you.
Okay. I'm Amy White. I am a wife. I married my high school sweetheart, and together we have 2 children, a little girl, Joey, and a little boy, Noah, who is turning 1 tomorrow. So it's 1 year tomorrow since
It's his birthday.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Amazing.
Yeah. We have health and fitness business. We've been together since we were 15, traveled the world, and that's me.
Amazing. So, Amy, I know you're so much.
I guess you would say I'm a crunchy mum, a little bit like natural mum is what I guess who I would resonate with. Yeah.
And I notice all your Facebook posts, Instagram as well. You're very passionate about things birth related and health and fitness as well. We're going to interview your husband in the future as well and have a chat to him, which would be very cool upon your suggestion. So Amy, maybe take us on a journey. I think that's probably the best way, isn't it? There's no value in me asking questions because you've got so much to share.
Yeah. So my first birth was in 2017, and that was our daughter Joey. She's now 3, and our second birth was in 2019. My first birth, went into it not realizing that I was going into it with all the stories and stuff from my mom and I guess I'm sorry if you can hear my kids crying.
You don't need to apologize. It's all part of it. I'm sure mothers listening already.
They get it. And so I went into my first birth. I listened to I didn't listen to any birth podcasts. God, I wish I had. I listened to some birthing audiobooks. I dabbled in reading some birth books. To be honest, I didn't read them in their entirety or very many of them. My mum had 3 drug-free vaginal births, and she had always told me that you just have to get through it. You just have to get through it. So you just have to grit and bear it, right? And then everything that I was reading was, no, actually, you don't grit and bear it. You relax and get through it. So come my birth, well, first of all, Joey, we got to 41 weeks and 3 days and my obstetrician told us, we went in and I was against induction. I was like, I'm not being induced because I know that it's more painful. That's what I knew. That's all that I knew. And my obstetrician told us, we went in at 41 and 1 or something. And he said, I know you don't want to be induced, but we need to start talking about it because once you hit 41 and 3, your chances of stillbirth double. Now, I'm a very pregnant, very hormonal woman who wants a natural drug-free birth, and my doctor has just told me that in 2 days' time, the risk of my baby being stillborn will double if we don't induce. And I just remember Dale and I, I'm probably going to start. My first birth, I will probably get emotional about because it's still hard for me to talk about. But we left the hospital and I remember we had to get petrol, and there's a petrol station near the hospital. And even to this day, when I drive past that hospital, I get just like a feeling in my chest, like a tightness I don't like. But he filled up petrol and I just sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed and I couldn't breathe. I was crying so hard because I didn't want an induction, but I didn't want what I thought was my selfishness over not wanting something to kill my baby, because I was, hormonal, and that's what my doctor had told me. In hindsight, for any mums listening, what I would say is to do your research yourself, because yes, it technically doubles the risk, but the risk goes from, I should have got the numbers ready for this, but it goes from like 0.0001 to 0.001. Like, it's not, had I had those numbers, I would never have been induced. Never. But being told by my obstetrician that it was going to double the risk, I was like, induce me. Mm-hmm. So, which was regret number one. So, had the induction. Labor started that night when I was in hospital. The pain was pretty bad straight away. Like labor pain, but like period pain. Well, actually, first of all, so the induction was a balloon because I didn't want any drugs. So we did the balloon option, and as he was putting it in, I was bleeding, and he kept saying sorry, and I was gritting and bearing it, and it hurt a lot, but he just kept saying sorry. He's like, you're so tight, which in hindsight, obviously my body wasn't ready if it was that tight. And he said to me, most women would have stopped me, like that was a pretty painful. He's like, that's a good sign for labor. So I was feeling pretty good, but through the night it was really uncomfortable, and when labor started, it was pain. It was painful. Like, I would describe it as painful. It was, it wasn't great. So then the morning came, we got the midwives into the room and they checked us and everything. So we went down to the birth suite, and I think I was like 1 centimeter. I was like, well, that's bullshit because this really hurts. Like, oh my God, I was hoping to be a lot more than that. Because I'd sort of gone all through the night. Like, the pain started about 11 p.m. So this was about 6 a.m. I was hoping for a bit more than 1 centimeter. So then Mum came to the hospital, and because I had got in my head that I was going to just get through it no matter what, and not have any drugs no matter what, and just get through it, my plan was to just listen to music and zone out. So that's what I did, but oh my God, the music now, you live and you learn, but the music that I was choosing was like, because I've done a lot of Tony Robbins and stuff, so it was like Tony Robbins pump up music. So I'm in labor, in labor, which anyone who's ever had a baby or been around anyone who's had a baby knows that is just not the zone you want to be in. Like, come on, let's do it. God. So 8 hours later, I was 3 centimeters. But here's the thing, I was on the clock. From the moment I was induced, I was on the clock. So, I was walking a lot, squatting, trying different positions. The midwives were giving me different suggestions. And to me, looking back, the whole thing just seems so rushed. And Dale says the same thing, but it was like having to keep an eye on the clock, and they were just constantly, come on, the doctor's coming back, he's going to measure you soon, you need to be progressing, come on, you need to be progressing. I'm sorry, but I'm not really sure how I could have progressed faster by being stressed out about the clock and feeling like I was in a hostile environment. So it got to the point where the pain, I was like screaming, went from like quiet to just like ripping the pillow with my teeth, screaming. Like, I was like, I am for sure like at least 9 centimeters, still 3 centimeters, never got beyond 3 centimeters. Joey's heart rate dipped, and ended up being an emergency C-section under a general anesthetic. So I wasn't there when she was born. It was horrific. The whole time wheeling into surgery, I was sobbing, holding my belly. And I just kept saying, I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry, because I felt like I failed her. Because I really didn't want a C-section. Let alone a C-section under a general anesthetic, where I knew I wouldn't be there. She would have been alive for an hour before I met her. So that sucked. And then, so after the C-section, the next day I had a little bit of a temperature, and they said, we think you might have an infection, you need to go on antibiotics, but I didn't want to go on antibiotics. Very long story short, I ended up getting a pretty bad infection. I became septic. We actually went home, and I kept saying to Mum and Dad, the pain is so bad. This pain is so bad. I couldn't walk. I got to the point where I was whispering. I couldn't talk because it hurt too much to talk. The vibration of talking, which I never normally even notice, hurt my body so much. And my temperature got up to 42.2, but I was so, it's like my brain had started to not work properly because I was septic. And so I knew my temperature was at, and in my head, I was like, I'm going to die, but I can't be bothered going to the hospital to do it. There's so much rigmarole in that. I'll just do it here. It's easier. So I went to bed. I couldn't hold Joey. Mum and Dale had to hold Joey on me to breastfeed and stuff. But ended up going to sleep. And then I got up in the morning to go to the toilet. And I remember there was like what I thought was breast milk all over the floor. I thought I was leaking everywhere. And I was like, far out, breast milk stinks real bad. I'll have to remember that. Turns out it wasn't breast milk, because when we woke up again in the morning, I took the blanket off and I just said to Dale, I was like, Dale, call an ambulance. There was pus and blood all through the bed. Like, I had leaked everywhere. Horrific, disgusting. Ended up going back to hospital, and I was in hospital for the first 6 weeks of Joey's life on strong IV drip of antibiotics. They wanted to operate, and then I was on the operating table, and they came and told me they couldn't operate without doing permanent damage to my uterus or my bladder. So I needed to just go and wait it out. And we had the head of infectious disease come in, and they said, that I was really lucky that it burst out in the middle of the night, because if it had burst in, I just wouldn't have woken up. I would have died.
Wow.
So that was my first birth, and I was traumatized by that, completely traumatized. For months, I would just sit on the shower floor crying and crying and crying. I felt like I had failed. And even on Joey's first birthday, I cried that morning. Like, I was really, really traumatized by it. But it took a lot of work to realize that it wasn't me who failed, it was the system. And every little step along the way could have been different. So fast forward to when I was pregnant with my second child, I did a lot of work before pregnancy, and then during his pregnancy, I became birth obsessed, birth podcast obsessed, everything birth obsessed.
And Amy, just before we move on, because I know it's a very different outcome in the second. Just because I know there's people listening, and thank you so much for just being so open and vulnerable. I know, I know there's so many people that will resonate. I'm just sitting here going, wow, like, imagine hearing this and knowing you need to hear it is so cool. So forgive my ignorance, because I just don't know, but I want to learn, which is why I'm asking. I can only imagine that it would have been really difficult to even make the decision to have another child, right? Like, what was it that allowed you to...
No.
Oh, tell me more. This is what I'd love to.
In the hospital bed, when I was about to be discharged after spending 6 weeks in hospital, I said to my doctor, does this slow down when I can have another one? He looked at me and goes, what the fuck kind of drugs are we giving you? He's like, are you serious? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay. No, I've always wanted more kids. And do you know what? Here's the thing as well. In her pregnancy, I had severe hyperemesis to the point of being in hospital during pregnancy on an IV drip because I couldn't even keep an ice cube down. And I guess a lot of people are like, such a and do you know what? Everything I just told you about the birth, her pregnancy was harder. That's how hard her pregnancy was. So hard. And so many people, like, after a pregnancy like that and a birth like that, like, why are you so eager to jump in? I grew up, I have brothers and sister, but they're minimum 18 years older than me. So I grew up as an only child, but always wanted lots of kids. And to me, you put in a year of hard work and you get a lifetime with them. I don't know. I'm a very determined person. I also knew that I could do it. And so, like we have 2 kids now. We still want more kids. I don't want kids to prove I can give birth. I didn't want him to prove I could give birth. But even though that experience was horrific and traumatic, I knew that billions of other women had done it the way that I wanted to do it. So it was possible.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the insight.
Yeah.
So now maybe, I'd love to hear. We'll hear a bit more about Noah because I know things turn up for everyone listening.
So I think I was only like 6. I was definitely before the 12-week mark when I met Ginny. And you know what? I met her and I hadn't met her before Joey's birth. And I met her when I was anywhere between that 6 to 12-week mark with Noah. I can't quite remember. And she saw me for 3 minutes and she could tell me what had happened with Joey's birth. And I was just gobsmacked. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, backstory, I did dancing from the age of 3 until like 18. Pretty intense ballet, jazz, tap, all that sort of stuff. So my body grew and developed a certain way. My hips turn a certain way. My feet turn out. My knees sort of turn a certain way. Just, I have a dancer's body. And Ginny could tell that straight away. She was like, you need to stop standing like that. Like, and she instantly, she got me to raise my legs and do some things. And she's like, this is what would have happened in your birth. And looking at my birth notes and everything months later when she did, what she had said that she thought would have happened. And one of the things I was like, so cranky about is she was saying, because obviously I went to one of Ginny's talks that she gives to midwives and birth professionals. And she was explaining if the baby's in this certain position, this particular position, leaning over the bed, is the single worst thing that a mother can do. Now, it will feel good, but it's the worst thing she can do to progress labor. I was like, I spent fucking 12 hours in that position and no doctor, no midwife, no one said anything. That's when I was like, all right, my next birth is going to be amazing, because I was in a room full of midwives and doulas and physios and chiropractors, and I think there was an OBGYN there, so birth professionals who wanted to learn how the woman's body worked, because typically they don't learn, like doctors don't learn that. I used to work with doctors in birth, and I know that they're surgeons trained in a certain way. Which, I don't want to disrespect them at all. What they do is amazing, but I know from speaking to, because I'm friends with a lot of them as well, I'll know from speaking with them that then they don't necessarily learn how to help a woman move her body to help the woman progress labor. So it was amazing to be in a room full of professionals learning that. And it gave me hope because I was like, okay, there are people out here that are learning these skills to help women. Like, I knew that if Joey's birth had happened in that, like in a room with those people, it would have ended in a vaginal birth. There wouldn't have been a C-section because they would have known the things that I could have done, the positions that I could have done to help labor progress. Anyway. That's why I think it's really, really important that health professionals learn these things and are open to learning these things, because you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know in Joey's birth. So Noah's birth, his pregnancy, I became birth obsessed. Every day I would go for a 4-kilometer walk every day, on my own, listening to birth podcasts, just one after the other. And I listened to a lot of VBAC stories. I listened to a lot of home birth. I toyed with the idea of a home birth. My next birth will probably be a home birth. I just became birth obsessed. But one of the things that I think made the biggest difference between Joey's birth and Noah's birth is being open to all the information as well. So acknowledging that my beliefs around birth, as much as I was like, no, other people's opinions haven't influenced me, acknowledging that, well, yes, they have. It's literally impossible that they haven't. Because we are, everything that we see, hear, and feel based on our experiences. And my experiences were those stories that I had heard growing up. We did things differently. We got a doula. We did hypnobirthing, and I worked with Ginny, with OMP. I did OMP stuff, and totally different experience. The pregnancy was different. The birth was different. Everything was different because I was so open to so much more. And instead of only preparing my mind, I feel like in Joey's birth, because I had this belief that you just got to get through it. It's all up to your mental strength. Just get through it. Having gone through her birth, I was like, well, fuck no. There's a lot of physical shit involved. Like, that was a very physical experience for me. So doing OMP work and realizing that there's actually a lot of things that you need to do physically to prepare for birth, because you wouldn't just go and run a marathon going, all right, I've mentally trained myself that it's going to be really hard, but I just got to keep running. You can't. You have to physically prepare as well. So I didn't physically prepare at all in Joey's birth. I did nothing physically. Whereas with Noah's, I went for a 4K walk every day. I was doing, we ended up getting a massage table specifically so that we could do the exercise, the OMP exercises. Dale and I were doing them every night. We had our balls, we had our rebozo. I was like, I'm not messing around. You will shake my, like, do it. Like, we're doing it. Like, get involved. Like, so, and Dale was really, really on board as well, because he was extremely traumatized by Joey's birth. And so he was, whatever it takes to the ends of the earth, we're having the birth we want to have. And do you know what? Not just did the exercises make the birth so much easier. It made pregnancy easier. There would be nights where I couldn't sleep when I was pregnant with Noah because my hips hurt. And it'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be like, Dal, you got to get up. We got to get on that table. I need to stretch out my hips. And so we would get up at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and we would do them. And then I could sleep. The pain would go away. Women need to know this. They need to know that, are your hips hurting and you can't sleep? There are things you can do. Like, you can actually be more comfortable in pregnancy. Like, it's incredible. So Noah's birth, I was actually in labor, turns out, from the Sunday, but because it was a natural progression, I thought it was Braxton Hicks, and I was getting annoyed at how I was having to stop every 10 minutes or so for a minute or so because I couldn't talk just because this Braxton Hicks so frustrating. Like, yeah, it wasn't Braxton Hicks. The night before he was born, I went to the chiro at around 5:00. There was a chiro who was specifically trained. Now, I'm really sorry, but I can't remember the name of the type of chiropractor that you want to find. But I know that Ginny talks about it. That's how I knew what kind to find. Anyway, it was Olive Chiropractic I ended up going to because they were trained in the specific thing for women in labor. And
sorry, Amy, you saw them throughout pregnancy?
Yes. And which I didn't do in Noah's in Joey's. No chiro. Noah's, chiro me up. Like, do all the things. Saw her actually 24 hours before. So went back the day before Noah was born, and it was to the point where I was every 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes I was like, hang on. And I would just sort of like, okay, sorry. And then I'll get back to it. She's like, she's looking at me because I drove there with Joey. She's like, honey, how did you get here? I was like, I drove. She's like, all right. I think maybe we might call Dale to come pick you up. She's like, I'm just not sure if you should be driving. I was like, no, trust me, it's fine. Like, it's only every 6 minutes. And she's like, but what? Does it happen when you're driving? I was like, yeah, just breathe. Like, it's all right. It's fine. She's like, okay, that's fine. But just promise me you won't drive here tomorrow. And I was like, okay. She goes, I think you'll have the baby tonight or tomorrow. But just, if you haven't, just promise me you won't drive here tomorrow. I was like, yeah, all right. In my head, I'm like, hopefully she can turn this into real labor. I get up on the table and she could see from my bones the difference from between 24 hours before and now. She goes, honey, these aren't Braxton Hicks. You're in labor. I was like, you reckon? She goes, no. You're in labor. She's like, I really don't feel comfortable with you driving home. I was like, it's fine. I called Mum on the way home. I was like, Mum, the chiro thinks I'm in labor, so can I bring Joey to your house? Called Dale. He was just about to go to boot camp. I'm like, babe. He's like, what's happening? I'm like, you can go to boot camp, but chiro thinks I'm in labor. He's like, I'm not going to boot camp. So Joey ended up going to Mum's because the doula had actually said to us, a lot of the times when people have toddlers, their body won't go to the next stage of labor until they know that their toddler has been taken care of properly. Right? Because as a mum, I got to be on guard for her, sort of watching her, making sure she's okay. That's why she said a lot of times labor will start during the night, morning starts, it stops, goes back at night and stops. So we knew we had to take Joey to Mum's. So we took Joey to Mum's. That night, all through the night, I was getting really annoyed at my hip pain. I was getting hip pain on and off in one side. It was labor. I went and slept on the couch and did all these things. Got up in the morning and I was like, all right, let's go for a walk. We went for a long walk, Dale and I, stopping every maybe 5 minutes at this point. And Dale's getting nervous because we were told when they're 5 minutes apart, like that's when we need to start thinking about going into hospital. And I was like, look, I'm stopping and I know I can't talk and I know I'm not, because I was like zoning out. Like I was in another planet. I would literally disappear off Earth for a minute and come back and be like, no, it's not labor. It's not labor. Don't trust me. Because what I was comparing it to was Joey's labor, right? And that was an induction. So very, very different. He called the doula and she was like, honey, I'm going to come. And I was like, no, don't. I said, Dale, why'd you call Karen? I don't want her to come because now what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to entertain her. She's like, you don't have to entertain me. Like, that's not what this is. I was like, oh, everyone just needs to calm down. This isn't labor. She got there and then my contractions were like 3 minutes apart. She's like, honey, we have to go to the hospital. I was like, no, Karen, this isn't labor. She's like, okay, I know you think it's not labor. So we went for a walk and during that walk, she was timing it, and she was like, you didn't have any waves during that walk. I was like, oh yeah, I did, but they weren't too bad, so I didn't bother telling you. She's like, well, what? How many did you have? I was like, 4. She's like, what is going on? Went and had a shower. My waters, because I just kept saying, it's not labor, it's not labor, it's fine, it's not labor. Had a shower, came back out. She's like, all right, we're going to do some hypnobirthing stuff. Like, turned all the lights off, put the relaxing music on, and she just massaged my whole body, and we did hypnobirthing stuff. And she did like things about letting go and accepting that this is labor, accepting that it can be easy, and accepting that things are progressing. Finished that, stood up, my waters just went everywhere. I was like, oh shit, okay, now this is labor. And at that point I was like, you know what, in my head I was like, I'm just gonna have a home birth, like I can't be bothered going to hospital. But then there was meconium in my waters,
Right.
so we had to go to hospital, because I just had a doula, I didn't have a midwife.
Yeah. And who was your doula, sorry, Amy?
Her name is Karen Hammond, and she is a hypnobirth professional and a doula, and I will never give birth without her ever again.
Wow.
You know how some people, like I always say when people ask me about my doula, I say, you know how Michael Jackson was born to perform? Karen was born to be a birth professional.
Amazing.
So yeah, it was really funny. We went to get in the car. She's like, honey, just remember as you get in the car, I was like, I know, labor sometimes stops when we get in the car. She goes, or sometimes it speeds up. I was like, whatever. Like, this isn't, it's not even that point. I'm only going because of the meconium. Got in the car. We got maximum 90 seconds up the road. And I said to Doula, pull the fuck over. I'm not going any further. I was like, this is labor. And then he lied to me. He was like, Way says it's only 20 minutes. You just got to go 20 minutes. That's like 4 or 5 more contractions. I was like, all right. He lied. In his head, he's panicking because Way says it's like 55 minutes because it's like peak hour traffic. We got onto the highway. I was like, oh my God. But do you know what? When I look back at my labor, the hardest part was in the car, pain-wise, because I'm having to sit up and it's not, I can't do what I want to do. You're sort of restrained. But then I put my headphones in and I put my hypnobirthing podcast on with Melissa, and I just listened to that over and over and over from the moment I got in the car until the moment he was born. Just had that on repeat. And in the car was actually so, like, I have goosebumps. It was so special because I opened my eyes at one point and I just saw a sea of traffic and I was like, that's okay. Like, that's fine. Like, I'm just going to go within now and it's just going to be me and my baby. And Dale said that all he could hear, because I couldn't hear him. I couldn't hear anything. I could only hear my podcast. My birth track, my hypnobirthing track over and over. And with every contraction, I just kept talking to Noah and I just kept saying, good job, baby. You're doing so well. Like, I'm so proud of you. You're doing such a good job. And I was, instead of what I did in Joey's birth, gritting and bearing through and you just have to get through it. In Noah's, I was so open to feeling it, like feeling how amazing is this? Like, I can feel my baby moving. I can feel the surges and I know that that's bringing my baby down. Like, how amazing we're working together. Like, we're doing it. And I just kept rubbing my belly. I just kept saying, we're doing it. We're doing it. You're doing such a good job, little man. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, we got to the hospital. Karen was driving behind us. We got to the hospital. I got out of the car and then I just went to like sit down and Karen's like, no, and came like running over. I was like, no, Karen, I'm just going to sit down. Dale's going to get a wheelchair. I'm just going to sit down. She's like, honey, you sit down. You're going to have a baby on the car park floor. She's like, you cannot sit. You will not get up. Come on. Which is funny because up until then she was always like, do what do you want, do it anything, what do you want, sweetie? And then she's like, no. So yeah, we got into the hospital, same hospital I had Noah at, Joey at, same doctor, same everything. Which I know there might be people listening that go, oh my God, you shouldn't have done that. But my background is that I worked in obstetrics and gynecology for a really long time, and I knew my doctor on a personal level, and I knew that he was the one who would be supported. He cried when Joey was born. He didn't want her birth to go the way that it went. He is a good doctor, and he has a very, very good vaginal birth rate and a very, very good VBAC rate. So I knew that he was where I wanted to go, and he was the dream doctor in Noah's birth, like amazing. So we got there, and the difference between having a doula and not having a doula, I didn't talk to any of the midwives. I didn't talk to any of the admin. I didn't talk to anyone. I was like, I'm here in labor. I'm going to do my own thing. Get me my room. Talk to my doula. Like, she will take care of everything, because I just need to stay in my zone. And my zone, my only job is to birth this baby. I don't care about anything else. Yes, so we got into the room. And it's going to have a water birth. We bought a birth pool. I was like, we're having a water birth. And then I was like, I'm going to want a shower. I don't want the bed. When we get in the room, Dal, your first job is to move the bed out of the way. That was my pregnancy. In labor, I walk into the room. I'm like, give me the bed. I need the bed. And yeah, I got up on the bed and I didn't get off until he was born, which is really funny. And it was just so calm and relaxed. And I had specifically put in my birth plan was very specific, because I thought if the midwives there have this to read, they'll have no questions. Like, don't talk to me, read the birth plan. You'll know the answer to every question you can possibly ask, because I'm extremely well researched and I know the things that you're probably going to ask, and the answer's in there. And if the answer's not in there, ask my doula. And yeah, it was incredible. The room was dark. The whole thing's on video. And the first thing I say after he's born, I was like, and I'm in actual shock. I was like, but it was so easy. But it was so easy. I just kept saying over and over, but it was so easy. So easy. In fact, the midwife and doctor weren't even in the room when his head came out, because they didn't know that he was about to be born, because I didn't want any checks. They did one check because of the meconium, and I was 5 centimeters, and he was born 40 minutes after 5 centimeters. So that's pretty quick. Yeah, it was amazing. I honestly didn't think that I was in full-blown labor until 2 minutes before he was born. Literally 2 minutes. Like, I knew I was in labor, but I didn't think he was going to be born that night. There was a few times where my midwife and my doula looked at each other, and remember, I'm not hearing anything because I've just got that birth podcast going over and over, and all I'm thinking in my head is listening to those words. She's just saying over and over, I'm having a calm, easy birth. And I was like, yep, I am. And a few times I would be like, oh, and I would look at, like, I was like, oh, because it'd be like an intense one, and I'd just look at Karen like, whoa. She's like, do you need anything, honey? Poor thing. The only thing I requested was clouds. I want clouds. Can you imagine being the doula? Sure, I'll just grab you some clouds. She got me like pillows and stuff. But yeah, I remember they looked at each other a few times, and I said to them, I said, I know you're looking at each other. I know you think that it's going to happen, but I'm telling you it isn't. And they would just be like, but yeah, 2 minutes before he was born, because it's all on video, I look at Karen, I'm like, Karen, I feel a ring of fire. She's like, yeah, honey, you're having a baby. I was like, oh. Yeah, and then so my doctor came in, and I remember like feeling, because I didn't push, I just wanted to breathe him out because I did hypnobirthing. Sort of a little bit misleading, because it is very intentional breathing, so it's not pushing, but it's definitely not just breathing the baby out. So it's more, for me, my experience anyway, was like breathing quite firmly. I wouldn't describe it as pushing though. but I felt like he crowned a bit in a contraction, and then he came back out. And so I was like, oh, okay. In my head, I was like, I get it. I just got to breathe a bit harder. I'll just get him out in the next one. And my doctor came in, and that was the only time I opened my eye. I opened one eye, and I was like, that's good. He's here. And then he closed the door and he left, and I was like, that's not great. Anyway. Yeah. And then so the next one, I breathed his head out, and his little tiny head popped out, and it was exactly like they say a textbook birth should, quote unquote, be. His head came out, he rotated literally like they would do in a movie, like in a diagram of what should happen. Yeah, and his little head was out, and I was just talking to him, looking at him like, this is so surreal. The baby's head's out, but his body's in me. And I was like, well, we'll just wait here for the next one. And I wasn't in any pain or anything. Like, I hear people talk about that being in pain. I don't know if I was so high, like not on drugs. I didn't have any drugs or anything, but just on endorphins. But there was no pain, and I was like, all right, next one, here he comes, let's do it. Dale ran out of the room, and he was like, Brian, call for the doctor. And he's like, the baby's head's out. The doctor and the midwife come running in, and my doctor was really respectful, and but it was really funny. Right at that time when his head came out, the music that I'd been listening to, the track stopped, and I was like, you can just see me on the video going, music, 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 music. I don't want to hear what anyone has to say. I literally just want Melissa's voice over and over and over to get me through this next little bit. Yeah, and then my doctor was really respectful. He came in and he was like, do you want the baby to come out? Or like, he asked me what I wanted, and my doula was like, no, she'll just wait for the next surge and then she'll deliver him. So it was really good because I didn't have to speak. I was like, yep, do that. Everybody do that. Just here we go. Ready? And yeah, he came out, and it was so freaking easy. Not easy like a going to the park, or walk in the park, go to Kmart thing. But the difference between his birth going all the way to 10 centimeters and delivering him, and Joey's contractions at 3 centimeters. You know, they say apples and oranges. It was like apples and rocks. Like, there's no comparison. Nothing. No comparison. And I cannot wait to give birth again. I walked out of the room. So you give birth in the birth suite, had a shower afterwards. Like, we had that hour of contact and all that sort of stuff. And the placenta was delivered, connected, and it was all amazing. Because I never saw Joey's placenta as well. It felt very much like I was given a clean baby wrapped up in a blanket. It could have been anyone's baby. Whereas to like have might sound a bit weird to a man, but to have that blood on me from Noah, and to have the placenta, and it was so real. Whereas Joey's, I went to sleep and woke up with a wrapped up pretty little baby, and it wasn't that motherly, earthly, grunting stuff that birth is, the magic that birth is, right? Birth is so freaking magical. And so, yeah, it was amazing to have that. But I walked out of the birth suite. I was like, when can we do that again? And I literally, it was funny, I said to Dal, people who have twins are so lucky because they get to do that twice in a row. Like, I have to wait at least another 9 months to do that, or at least another year to do this. Like, twins, you get to do it, and a few minutes later you get to do it again.
Wow. And just going back to your comment before, nothing surprises me anymore. The things that I've been exposed to and seen.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah. So I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's amazing. I love birth so much, man.
Wow.
It's the best. I've never done drugs, but I've had a general anesthetic, obviously. And you know, like that feeling when you're going under a general anesthetic, you're kind of like, oh, I understand why people do drugs. Sounds bad. But birth is like the best high you could ever imagine. And I was on that high for months. For months, I was like, I am amazing. Like, it was so good. Even now, he's 1 tomorrow, and I'm like, come on. I don't know, this is probably a bit much for a man, but I'm assuming most of your listeners are women. I don't know my period back because I'm breastfeeding 2 kids. And I'm like, come on, period, come back. Get a baby in me so I can give birth again.
You chatted to Dale about this, or?
Yeah. He knows. He knows. And then I was like, maybe after we're finished having kids, I could be a surrogate. Like, I just love birth. It's so good. And I know a lot of people are like, you know, you're just lucky you had a good birth with Noah. I was like, mm-mm. When people say I'm lucky, I'm like, bitch, no. I worked so hard for 2 years so that I could have an amazing birth. Yeah. And I know that I can't guarantee that all my future births will go that way, but at least I will know every option and I will give it its best chance. And having a dancer's body, my hips don't work necessarily the same as, you know what, no two women hips are exactly the same. So having the tools to help my body do what my body needs to do to give birth, I can't wait to do it again.
So I'd love to, what I'd love to do, Amy, is I know that there will be maybe first-time mums that need to hear this story of what's possible. Yeah. And like you say, people say you got lucky, right? For me, we know the truth to that, and you're sharing that. So if I put to you, how does someone experience what you did? If you would say, there's 3 things or 4 things, what's most important? If there's mothers listening, pregnant right now, what's your advice?
Okay. Number 1 is, like I said, everyone says birth is just as much mental as it is physical. Everyone says that, right? And it's correct. Yes. But don't forget the physical, because it is very physical. And so you're going to have to do some physical things in preparation if you want that kind of birth. And until the day that I die, I will recommend O&P for mothers. Until the day that I die. It made a huge difference. And I know that with every cell in my body, because it made a huge difference just in my pregnancy. And I mean, an immediate huge difference. Like I said, nights when I would wake up and say, Dal, we need to do this now. And it would fix the problem and I could sleep. Number 2, have a doula. Doulas are consistently listed. When you look for natural pain medicine, natural pain help or whatever in labor, the number 1 thing listed is always a doula, followed by water, but it's always a doula. I didn't have a doula in my first birth because of the culture that I had sort of worked in before, working in obstetrics and gynecology. Sort of kind of people are made fun of when they have doulas, but do you know what? All those mums always had beautiful natural vaginal births. Funny, isn't it? So have someone, doesn't necessarily, I mean, for me it's a doula, or it could be a midwife. Have someone who is, and it can be your birth partner, but for me, I just wanted that extra person who could be the go-between. So if you're going to be having a birth in a hospital, that person who admin talk to, doctors talk to, midwives talk to, who knows you, knows what you want, knows your preferences, knows how you communicate, knows how you talk, knows how to read your body, and can help you achieve what you want. Number 3, I think hypnobirthing. Hypnobirthing is amazing. For first-time mums listening, hypnobirthing is not about actually being hypnotized. And I know that I've heard many people who do hypnobirth practitioners say that they've thought about changing the name of it because the name's a bit misleading, but they can't because of it's all branded and things like that. So look past the name hypnobirthing and look at why tens of thousands of women who have done it are like, you got to do it. Because there's a reason we all think you got to do it. It's amazing. And it is probably the thing that made me go from being like, just got to get through it, to I'm actually going to allow myself to feel it. Like, this is an amazing experience, and how lucky am I that I get to actually feel this? Let's feel it. Feel it. Don't be afraid to feel it. Yeah, those are the 3 biggest things. And you know what? Also, get your partner to do it as well. And podcasts. I'm so into podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time. And I would save the podcasts that I thought were really incredible. There's a podcast called Birthful, and they had like 3 podcasts in a row on the stages of labor and why you don't push and things like that. And I was like, this is incredible, because it broke everything down and it made it really relatable. And so I saved that and I sent that to Dale, and I had like podcasts that I was like, you have to listen to these ones. And I think that makes a huge difference, having them on board.
Yeah.
As well.
Awesome.
Just go with your instincts. And do you know what? If your doctor says something to you, know that they are coming at it with the best of their knowledge. But that doesn't mean that you can't research what they tell you. If I had gone and researched that doubling the rate, if I just researched that alone, totally different outcome. And, you know, it sounds really dramatic to say it can be the difference between life and death, because we don't think of birth as being that big of a thing in our culture anymore. But I had a 50% chance of dying. So it kind of is. Yeah.
Wow. I got one final question, Amy, because I'm aware of your time and I know you've got 2 little ones ready to go. So I'm so grateful. I want to listen back to this. My final question would be, that's the advice you've given to parents and to mothers. And I've met so many amazing doulas and midwives, and that's why, you know, we'll open up in these conversations. Maybe what would be your thoughts, or what you would share to them, you know, that the work they do in the birthing world? What would be your advice as a mother?
To doulas and midwives, just thank you, because you're amazing. My advice to them, gosh, you know what it would be? To please never stop educating yourself, and please be open, because the more that you can learn, the more trauma you can stop. And I know that so for those who don't know, when I worked in obstetrics and gynecology, it was just within an administration role sort of thing. I don't really want to get into too much detail about that. So it wasn't actually a birth professional. So when I went to Ginny's courses, it was all birth professionals. But seeing so many of them didn't actually know the things that she was teaching, and all of them being so surprised at how much it was actually helping their mothers. And so I'm so grateful that they were willing to do that, because I know how many women it will help. And so just always being open to anything, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what could help. And I just know that birth can be totally different the more knowledge that birth workers have.
Wow. Amy, you are absolutely amazing. You brought a tear to my eye. I've known you for so long. That's the first time I've actually heard your story in depth, and I knew the challenges and the trauma that you face, but to share it so openly and just so vulnerably to everyone, I have no idea who is listening to this that it can impact, but I know that there will be potentially thousands of people that will. So, Amy White, you are amazing. Thank you so much for all you have shared. Rock solid. Is this your first time doing an interview about this? Or not?
Yeah.
Call it a conversation. It's not an interview.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You just, you know, it's obviously so close to you in the way you share it. There's something so powerful in authentically, truthfully sharing something so close to you that resonates with so many people. So, Amy, you rocked. Yeah.
For me, my biggest thing is birth for me has been the single worst experience of my life and the single best experience of my life. And if we can help women make birth the best experience of their life, I think we have a responsibility to help do that.
Wow. So. And I think you've done that today.
Amy,
thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. You're awesome.
All right.
And thank you so much for listening in. Please comment below as well if you've got conversations, questions for Amy as well. I'm sure she'll be watching, because she's just absolutely amazing, and I'm grateful that I've had this opportunity to share. So, Amy, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.